Who gave you life? Who created you? Why did your mother give birth to you? How were you conceived? Is that because your mother is too good? Is that because your mother is too skillful? Your mother was wise enough to know where to put legs in your body. Your mother was wise enough to know where to put a heart in your body. Is it because your mother is too clever? Or your mother is wise that she decided where your eyes should be? Was it because your mother has the know-how to know where your veins should be, where your bones are supposed to be? Was it because of your mother's skills? Was it because of your mother's techniques? Is it because of your mother's experience that she knew where to put the hair? Is it because your mother is too wise to know and to put your fingers where they're supposed to be, to put the nails and the eyelids where they're supposed to be? Is it because your mother is too skillful to create your eye with all its systems? Why are you alive? Who made you? Is it because your mother is too clever? Is it because your father is too good? Or is it because God is too good? Is it because God is brilliant? Is it because God is omnipotent? Why are you alive? Who made you alive? Is it your mother or your father? Is it God? Is it your king? God gives you life. God gives you health. God gives you air to breathe. God gives you food. God gives you clothes to wear. God gives you life. Yet, what do you give to God? How much do you give to God? How much have you given to God yesterday? How much have you given to God since you've been alive? How do you repay God? God also gives you paradise, but how do you thank Him? How much do you give to God? The King didn't create you. The King have nothing to do with your creation. The King have nothing to do with the air you breathe. The King have nothing to do with the soil that you get your food from. The King did not create the water that you drink. Yet, how much do you give the King? How much do you give God as yourself? Who is more important, God or the King? How much do you give the King? You are starving, you are poor, you have no food, you have no clothes, you don't have enough, yet God sustains you. God keeps you alive. He kept you alive before you knew even yourself. He made you, He created you. But how much do you give to God? And how much do you give to the King? Who do you worship between God and the King? Who do you give offerings between God and the King? When did the King create you? What does the King know about the eye the veins in your eye? The King is a man like me and you. The King have blood. The King have bones and flesh. The King have hair. The King has mucus like me and you. The King sweats like me and you. The King bleeds like me and you. The King cries like me and you. How much do you give God? How much do you give the King? The King has no paradise. The King cannot prevent you from going to hell. The King can feel pain. The King can scream like you and me. The King was not king before he was born. The King will be no king when he is dead. So why do you worship the king? Why do you worship a human being? How much do you give to the king and how much do you give to God? The king has no paradise. The king did not create you. The king can go to hell just like you and me. The king can scream just like you and me. The king can feel pain. The king can cry just like me and you and me. So why do you worship the king? What has the king done to you? What has the king done for you? The king did not create the soil. The king did not create you. The king did not create the air you breathe. The king did not create the water you drink. Then why do you worship the king? Why do you offer to the king what you don't offer to God? God says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. The king says, love me more than you love yourself. The king says, give me 50 million rand when you don't even have 5 rand to buy bread. The king says, love the king more than you love yourself. God says, love yourself, your neighbor, like you love yourself. God wants you to love yourself. The king wants you to love him. God wants you to love yourself. Why don't you give money to yourself? Why don't you feed yourself? Why do you feed the king? Why do you love the king more than you love yourself? When God says, love your neighbor just like you love yourself. Why don't you give the king what you give yourself? When you spend 500 rand on food, why can't the king spend 500 rand on food? Because the king is having one stomach just like you and me. The king have 2 eyes just like you and me. The king have blood just like you and me. The king have bones just like you and me. Why do you love the king more than you love yourself? When God says, love your neighbor the same way you love yourself. Why don't you love the king more than just like you love yourself? Why don't you love your neighbor just like you love yourself?